going on, everybody? Smitty from around the 412 here. We couldn't wait a week to talk about the Kenny Pickett situation, right? So not a podcast, but just putting out this video to kind of talk about the Kenny Pickett situation, how we got to the point where we are now, and Kenny Pickett being traded to the Philadelphia Eagles along with pick 120 in the 2024 NFL draft for pick 98 and then two 2025 seventh rounders. All in all, the trade value works out to basically Kenny Pickett for a fourth round pick. It seems like it was kind of a whirlwind and it happened seemingly out of nowhere for some people. To be honest, I was in an X space on Monday and we were talking about the situation. And I said, I think Kenny Pickett's going to have to be traded. And speculation on my part, I hadn't heard anything at that point about the situation, but I just felt like he wasn't going to take to the situation well. And clearly we saw how it played out once Russell Wilson was brought in. And, I'm not going to pretend to know everything that goes on behind the scenes. Anything that I put out there is something that I feel 100% confident about. Or if it's speculation, I will preface by saying, I think. So I try to be very clear and concise, whether it's opinion based or whether it is legitimate stuff that I hear, but I don't put anything out there unless it's legitimate stuff that I hear. So pure speculation on my part that I thought he would be traded. Also pure speculation on my part about what would lead to that. There has been some rumblings, obviously, about the way that he dealt with the situation once Russ was brought in. And going back to last year, the incident, obviously, and if you want to say incident, whatever it was that happened in Seattle that led to him not wanting to dress. And I'm not going to pretend to know what played out with that situation. I know there's conflicting reports. All I'll say is I'm 100% confident, regardless of the way that you want to word it, and I stand by it, that he did not want to dress for that football game. So that, for lack of a better word, we will say incident. That situation, whatever happened last year, along with the way that he felt about Russell Wilson being brought in for a competition. I mean, the team made it seem like it was a competition. Now, was that worded differently to him? Possibly. Maybe he had mixed feelings about the situation. Maybe it was worded to him differently prior to Russell Wilson being brought in. Once Russell Wilson was here, maybe something else was told to him. I'm not sure the way that it played out, but he requested a trade and the Steelers accommodated that, sending him to his hometown or childhood team, the closest he could be to his hometown, being a Jersey kid, the Philadelphia Eagles. I will say this is definitely faster than I expected it to happen. Like when I thought about the idea of this turning ugly, in my mind, it was a situation where whatever guy loses in a competition, quote unquote, and I'll talk about that in a second. One of those guys, whichever one lost that, maybe the situation would become ugly at that point. So, throughout training camp, as we get into the preseason, whatever, as you can clearly see who QB1 and QB2 are. That is when I thought maybe things would go south. Not this early, but clearly he felt some type of way about Russ being added, and in the form that he was added, whatever was told to him, whatever the plan that was laid out to him was. Alan Saunders, my co-host of Steelers Afternoon Drive, and I were talking about the situation, and I thought Alan brought up a really good point. And this didn't click with me, it didn't register with me until Alan was going through it. During the press conference for Russell Wilson, when he was talking about, Cam Hayward, Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt, like, man, that's the top brass of the team here that we're talking about, the leaders of this football team that we're talking about, recruiting Russell Wilson to come in here. What does that say about Kenny Pickett, the incumbent guy, if they are going this hard trying to get Russell Wilson to come here? So maybe it wasn't a lack of faith necessarily from, Tomlin, from Omar, and I certainly don't think Rooney. I think Rooney would have been completely fine running it back with Kenny Pickett. Maybe it was more of the team realizing that there was a lack of faith from the players in Kenny Pickett. I mean, going back to last year, we've talked about this before with the whole Deontay Johnson trade situation. A lot of this started to come out, what the situation was like last year in the wide receiver room, how ugly things got, players that were not wide receivers having to go in there to cool things down. There was a lot of tension last year because of the way that the offense looked. And, again, a lot of that can be attributed to Matt Canada. I'm not putting everything on Kenny Pickett's shoulders here. I want to be very clear. But with the way things went down, the quarterback play that they were getting, the offense in general that they were playing within, it caused a lot of tension, a lot of frustration, and that all boiled over. And that's why you saw the turnover that you did. Arthur Smith being brought in, Zach Azzani, a new wide receivers coach. These were very intentional hires, known hard coaches, disciplinarian type coaches that are going to work you. It takes a certain type of player to play within these offenses, to play for these coaches. So, Allen's point about the roster, maybe feeling like they don't have the belief in Kenny Pickett and the team acknowledging that, and that being why there had to be a move made. Not necessarily, the top brass of the organization feeling that way, but an acknowledgement to the players that, we hear you, we see you. If this is what you want, this is the direction that we are willing to go, because ultimately you guys are the ones that are going out there and playing on Sundays. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. No ill will towards Kenny. I hope the best for him out in Philly. Obviously, I'm not saying that he didn't want to compete here with Russell Wilson. I think it was more, again, a lack of belief, a lack of faith on both parties. At this point, if Kenny felt a certain way about the roadmap that was laid out to him and the way that this offseason was going to go, and they went a different direction, so be it. But all the best to him out in Philly, because, certainly he's not competing for the starting job there. He's competing to be the backup to Jalen Hurts there. There probably isn't a better backup situation in the league in terms of getting the chance to play than playing behind a Russell Wilson who is here for the minimum in his mid-30s, who the Steelers have no ties to. So we will see the way that the Steelers decide to kind of reshape this quarterback room under him. I mean, the short term, it's Russell Wilson. What does this mean for the long term, though? You thought maybe either Kenny Pickett. Oh, I want to talk about the competition aspect of things. I don't know how you guys feel. Truly didn't feel like this was going to be a competition at any point going into this. And that could play into the way that Kenny saw it. And that's why he requested a trade. I don't think Russell Wilson agrees to come here, especially after meeting with only one team prior. No money added to 2025 from any team, no team willing to do that. But not even meeting with anybody besides the Giants and then the Steelers before making his decision, unless he's the starter. Or, I mean, at the very least, if there is going to be a pseudo competition, he's the 1A to Kenny's 1B. I just felt like the shoe was on the other foot for Kenny from like the quarterback competitions of the past, when you would like frame it as a competition, but we all knew it was Kenny's job. I kind of felt like this was him being on the other side of that now, where this is very clearly Russell Wilson's job. So that's kind of the situation that we're in for 2024. But again, long-term speaking now, what does this mean? Because you don't have a long-term solution on the roster. Like, Russell Wilson could go out and play very good football in 2024. That'd be great for the Steelers. But then what? Like, do you sign him to an extension at his age? Do you take that gamble? And you have nothing else in the quarterback room right now besides him. I'm sure most people saw it. I'm not breaking news for most people here. There's certainly interest in Justin Fields. He's definitely back in the mix for them in terms of acquiring him. What would they be willing to part with in order to do so? I don't know. I don't even know what the asking price is at this point. We've seen how depreciated the market has become. So we'll see on that front. But there's not a long-term solution here. And that's kind of why, if you listen to the last or 2 episodes ago around the 412 Steelers show, I said that I would prefer just to go with Kenny Pickett as opposed to Russell Wilson. My stance on that changed even prior to signing Russell, because I got to thinking about it and I was like, ultimately, I do not have the belief that Kenny Pickett is the guy. So at least if you bring in Russell Wilson and he's the guy for 2024, it ensures that sooner rather than later, you are resetting the position. Right? Because, you went to, I don't want to say the risk, but if Kenny was the starter in 2024 in Arthur Smith's offense and he looked good enough, the team would have, picked up his 5th-year option, maybe signed him to an extension. I don't know what would have happened, but very possible that he would have been the guy going forward. And if he played well enough to do so, then so be it. But I just didn't have the belief that would happen. I had a bigger belief that he would play just well enough and they would look at the team's success under it, similarly to like he has a 14-10 record. And they would decide to roll with him still into the future. This to me ensures, though, that that's not going to be the case. Russell Wilson for 2024, and then what? None of us know right now what the long-term solution is going to be, but I'm very interested to see it play out. And I have the faith now with watching what Omar Khan has done with everything else on the roster. He's not the one that selected Kenny Pickett. I want to see him get his quarterback, and I hope that Andy Weidel is still in the mix too, and he isn't plucked to another organization by the time that we're looking for what is hopefully our next franchise signal caller. Say it is Justin Fields that's brought in. I think there's, we've talked about this. I get the upside and everything. I think it's worth a swing, especially for what it seems like it would cost. But there's probably like a less than a 50% chance that Justin Fields is good or ever hits his ceiling, because how many quarterbacks have been a negative EPA player in their first 3 seasons in the NFL and then magically been good? And I get the surroundings that he had in Chicago. I think that he certainly elevates the floor of what an offense could be, but I'm very, very concerned that he doesn't, continue to improve as a passer, and he kind of just is what he is and isn't going to take any steps forward at this point. But for, again, what I think the asking price probably is at this point, because they got to move off of him. Caleb Williams at 1 is still what I'm thinking happens there. Sure, why not add him to the mix? And then do you pick up the 5th-year option? Then you do have your quarterback in 2025. But if he's not good, for $25 million in a sunk cost, what that could have been on the roster, what do you do? Or do you not pick up the 5th-year option, have him back up Russ this year, and then try to sign him to like that first deal that like Jordan Love signed, like heavily incentive-based, and hope that he plays well in 2025, and then you revisit it for another extension if that does happen? And what if Russell Wilson plays well in 2024? Do you look to extend him even at his age? And very clearly on the downside, I'm not saying he still can't play well enough for this team to be good and compete, but we're not in the best years of Russell Wilson anymore, very clearly. Last year, 18th in EPA per play when he was benched, which is fine. He's an average starter in the NFL still. Really, where he really shined was in the red zone. First in passer rating in the red zone, still throws a great deep ball, gets himself into trouble a little bit in the backfield, obviously. 100 sacks over the last couple of seasons, holds onto the ball way too long. Funny enough, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, bottom 2 in terms of hanging on to the football too long. But yeah, I'm intrigued by what the process is going to be here for the quarterback position, completely resetting it from last year. Kenny Pickett, gone. Mitch Trubisky, gone. Mason Rudolph, gone. Russell Wilson in. What else? What's the plan here at the quarterback spot? I don't think that trading Kenny Pickett was the plan for them when they brought in Russell Wilson. I think that they had to do it because of what was created afterwards and how it all went down. Be very curious to get your guys' thoughts on this. I just wanted to jump on here and touch briefly on kind of where my mind was at following this move, and what led up to it, or what I thought led up to it. Again, very interested to see where things go at this point, not just in 2024. This is, the most important position in football that we're talking about, with the Steelers seemingly not having a long-term plan in place right now. I shouldn't say plan. Maybe there's a plan. There's not a solution on the roster right now, long term. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. As always, we appreciate you guys. Follow us at Around the 412 wherever on all social medias. Podcasts, obviously, we post 3 a week. If you don't want to watch on YouTube, find us Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review over there. We'll be back next week for the regular podcast. As you guys know, Steelers, Penguins, Pirates, 3 pods a week. So again, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We'll see you guys then. Bye-bye.